Abstract writing is hard. I get it. The good news is simply learning how to diagnose and fix the 6 most common mistakes I see in an abstract will already elevate yours and help you show a reader the importance of your work and why it deserves to be published. So let's find out if you make any of these mistakes, and if you do, no stress. I'm going to show you exactly how to fix them. So if you're ready, let's get started. Problem number 1, not including a problem that your reader can relate to. The abstract is the first place we have to relate to our reader, and if we fail to do so right away, we miss a key opportunity to attract readers to our paper. So at the beginning of our abstract, we need 1 sentence, maybe 2, that helps put our work into context for our reader to show the reader why it is important that work is done in our field. This is usually done by showing the reader a problem in the field and showing why it is important that this problem be solved. To see what I mean, let's check out an example of a great abstract. I'm going to color this abstract for you according to my coloring scheme that allows you to more easily visualize all of the different key parts of an abstract. For a more detailed description of my coloring scheme that's going to show you the different parts of an abstract, show you how to break them down, what they consist of, and where they go in an ideal abstract using this exact abstract example I'm going to show you here today, please go to the video linked below. So back to this example. Notice that the very first sentence here provides the reader with a problem general enough that any reader of this journal is going to be able to understand it and relate to it. And it doesn't stop there because it gives the reader a little bit of reasoning and rationale as to why this problem is relatable to them or something that they should understand or care about. Perfect. Now your reader knows how to place your work in context. Or, in other words, they have the information they need to judge whether or not your work is important and something that needs to be done. Don't believe me? Let's contrast that with this abstract wherein this sentence is missing. If you get a chance, pause the video, read this abstract, and notice how your perception of the work done here is going to change when this relatable sentence at the beginning is not there. Notice now how there is no context as to why the reader should care that there is a lack of strategies for doing this. So what? Why does it matter that we develop new strategies for doing this? Because in the end here, your work is only going to matter as much as you can convince others that it does. If you can't convince an editor to publish your paper, your work is never going to be published. If you can't convince readers to read your paper, your work is never going to be cited. So your work here in this first sentence of the abstract is to make your work relatable. Make people intuitively understand the importance of this work, why you did this work, and make them want this work to be published and out there and cited. Mistake number 2, missing a statement of the impact of your work. A reader of your work likely doesn't intuitively understand why your work is important and the impact that it is having on your field. Therefore, it is your job to tell them that, and you want to do that directly in your abstract. So in our abstracts, we are going to put this at the end. So this is going to come after we've already set up a problem, a gap in the field, what we did to solve it and convey our results. Then we're going to give a 1-sentence statement of the impact of those results, or show how those results affect the field and the problem that we mentioned at the beginning of the abstract. So check out this final sentence in our example abstract. Notice how this tells the reader, so what, why the work deserves to be published, and ties this work into the relatable problem at the beginning. So what this does then is bring your abstract full circle and show how your work affected this field that you introduced. Again, don't believe me? Let's check out then how this abstract reads differently when this statement is missing. Take your time here to pause the video if you want to read this abstract. Notice here how this abstract just feels different. It has an abrupt, unsatisfying ending with no indication of why this work matters, and it fails to bring the story here full circle for your reader. But did you make this mistake? Don't worry, it is a really easy fix. All you need to do is add 1 sentence to the end of your abstract explaining to the reader, so what, why this work matters, why this work deserves to be published. Mistake number 3, including too many results. An abstract is sometimes considered a summary of the findings, which would indicate that the majority of the abstract would consist of summaries of findings. However, an abstract is so much more than that. So notice how in this example, while the summary of the results is that biggest overall section, it is not the vast majority of this abstract. In fact, it really only makes up about half the story. And that's just it. The results are just the results, but the abstract also must tell the story of those results, or the reader will not be able to make sense of what you did, or more importantly, will never be able to understand the implications of what you did, or why your work matters. So let's look at an example where the summary of results is the majority of the abstract and see how it affects the perception of what the authors did in this work, or basically that story of their work. So notice, while this abstract does cover all of the key parts I want to see in an abstract, the overall impact of this abstract is still quite low. Why? Because the context is so, abstract as to be completely uninformative for your reader. Meaning that even after reading this abstract, your reader still doesn't know why your work is important, why it matters, why it deserves to be published. And in case you didn't know, this is not good. But don't worry, this is an easy fix. If you focus on keeping that summary of your results to only about half the abstract, you can use the rest of that abstract for the context that tells the story around your results, letting the reader know why this work is important and deserves to be published. Okay, mistake number 4, not including a statement of the main objective of your paper. A statement of the objective, or the hypothesis or the goal, or whatever you're calling it in your paper, sets the scope of your paper for the reader and thus helps set their expectations of what is coming in this paper. And not only do we want to focus on having this objective statement, we want to focus on the positioning of that statement, because when abstract writing is done properly, this positioning helps play a very key role in indicating the impact and importance of the study that you conducted here in this paper. So in this sample abstract, hopefully you notice that the text immediately preceding this objective statement is colored in yellow, indicating that this text is telling the reader directly what gap in the field existed that your work sought to fill. So this means that our abstract is structured such that we first tell the reader a problem that they should care about, second, tell them a gap in the field that needs to be solved, and then third, tell them exactly what our work did to address this problem and address this gap. And it is this flow right here that conveys to the reader the impact and importance of your paper. Don't believe me? Check out this example abstract where this goal statement is missing. So you can see here that without this direct statement of the objective, the importance or impact of the paper is just not as clear. But luckily, this is also an easy fix, as most abstracts that are missing this objective statement do actually have it. It's just put somewhere buried inside of the results section, and it is not worded directly like the main goal or main objective of the paper, which is also reflected here in this sample abstract, where this goal statement is just buried in the results. So all you need to do here is find this goal statement, move it to directly after the gap, and before you start summarizing the rest of the results, and word it directly like a goal statement. Usually that wording is something like herein we, or in this paper we, or this paper presents, something like that, so that you keep this flow that tells the reader the impact and importance of your paper. Mistake number 5, missing a direct statement of the research gap. Hopefully you noticed from the last problem the importance of the gap, especially in this flow that shows the reader the impact of your work. We want to directly spell out what this gap was in previously existing research that we tried to fill with the work we're presenting here in this paper. So what does that look like? Notice again in this sample abstract that we have this yellow text indicating the research gap. Notice how this is a clear and directly worded statement of a problem in your field that your work exists to solve. So let's check out what it would look like if this gap were missing. Can you see how when this statement is missing, the reader has to sort of guess and determine this for themselves? Would you be able to determine this gap for yourself? Unlikely, right? And with that, can you see how it makes the importance of this work a little bit less clear? We do not want this. When we skip this gap statement, we make the reader have to figure this out for themselves. And the problem here is almost no reader is going to be capable of doing this except for potentially experts who are directly in your field. And hey, guess what? They're probably going to read your paper no matter how you write it. So luckily, again, easy fix. What we want to do here is just clearly articulate a problem that existed out there in the world before we started this research that our work exists to try to solve. You want to do this by adding a statement with obvious negative wording, something like but or however, to indicate to the reader that this is a problem. Otherwise, you can use direct statements of what information is missing, using direct phrasing like is unclear, remains unknown, or remains unexplored. And finally, problem number 6. Starting with a definition or an explanation. It is really common for abstracts to start with some kind of definition or explanation of background information or the field. This is just an easier place for people to start writing from, to start from something that you know and something that you want to define and make sure your reader knows. Notice here how in this example though, that starting from this definition or starting from some kind of background for the field makes the problem a lot less obvious. Even though this is such a common problem that I see, abstract writing like this makes your work in general less relatable for your reader. So instead of starting with anything that is background or the general field, you want to back it up a step, take it to a higher level, and explain first why your field exists, and then you can get into any needed or necessary background about your field before you start talking about your research. So those are our 6 mistakes. Which ones did you make? Let us know in the comments the mistakes you made, how you fixed them, and how this has elevated your abstract. For more information about abstract writing, you can check out the video I mentioned before, linked below, that's going to take this exact sample abstract, break it down into all its key components, show you how they fit together, show you why they fit together like that, what this brings to your abstract, and how it helps elevate your abstract. So happy writing, and importantly, happy publishing.